My name is Mohammad Saad Niazi. I'm the CEO of Keenu, also the co-founder. We are one of the fintechs in the country. Have been operating since 2013 in the area of retail, mostly, and are very well known with our point of sale network. Other than that, we do quite a few things. Being an EMI entity, we are into merchant wallets as well. We are into consumer wallets, payment gateway. That is a bit about Keenu. Mostly, I think about this most of the time as to where we were and where we have come to. So that's why I'm generally more optimistic than others, because I was part of this industry back in the day, in the 2000s, when we were just trying to build up the infrastructure that will be required to launch payment solutions and payment systems. From the time when I saw a period of a lull period, rather, for about half a decade, where not much was happening. That was late 2000s, and transitioning to the other decade. But since then, I think we now have payment gateways. We have e-commerce operators. If I look at the last decade, it has been much better than the previous decade before that. Much better in the sense they are practitioners, understanding has become better. Good brains have come behind it. Back in the day, brains passing out of the university or the money being put in used to be put into the FMCGs. Brains used to, good people, good students used to go into FMCGs. That was their preference. Now, venturing in from the tech side, coming to this side where they have started to become entrepreneurs, it's a very, very good sign. But the other part as to where we are headed, we have come to I believe we have sort of come to a choking point where, again, at every choking point, you need to have certain catalysts. Now, the role of the regulator, they have played it well, in fact, very, very well, and they have worked way ahead of what was expected of them, what was their domain. Now it's the role of the government coming together, the revenue authorities understanding what the real need is. So now we need to, as an industry, as and other publics that are around the industry, look at the holistic view and work on, follow a slogan with letter and spirit, and that is digitization as a whole. That is the part which is right now lacking. If in a year or so's time, legislation and impetus is, brought into the government, then you would see from this point Pakistan growing in all directions. I talk about e-commerce, talk about digitization, cashless economy. It will be an exponential growth. But without the real focus by the government and a policy that is about a two-decade policy, without that, we have reached a choking point to an extent. See, around the world, one thing is for sure, that the resistance against coming into the digital fold is really minimal in this day and age. Had been a problem with them as well a decade or so ago, but that same resistance continues in Pakistan, and I don't see a difference. So as far as selling is concerned, there's been a huge amount of hard sell, rather. You see businesses putting in their money, incentivizing by virtue of discounts, by virtue of loyalty points, etc. Just making the merchant adopt that payment methodology of any sort whatsoever, accepting a certain instrument. That has been happening on at the cost of the business. They with a mad belief, which is actually required to expand the business, or well, that's there's a chance. 1 out of 10 will succeed, but businessmen are kind of mad, crazy, passionate, that they would do anything in order to test a certain territory that is unknown to them. However, the problem persists. It's the merchant, or the retailer, or the distributors resistance to come into the digital fold, and that is generally, in my view and as per my own research and assessment, has to be because they want to evade tax. If that part is covered, if we broaden the tax base, and if we take a tough decision then you will see that the hard work that has been done by the companies over here is probably much more than the hard work done by our neighboring countries. You see, when the market opens up, then the capital will start coming in. The digital acceptance or the expansion cannot happen without the injection of capital. A business cannot itself. You are a businessman yourself, mashallah, one of people in the forefront. You understand it that you cannot generate such kind of funds. You have to put in capital. Either you do it yourself or somebody is motivated enough to do it. Why would anybody do it if they don't find the market? So if the market is created, there'll be somebody who jumps in first, and maybe in Pakistan, that's first. The first somebody may have a huge advantage, but that's the problem. You go at each step, right? As the money flows out of the bank, you see resistance in getting registered, documented, not coming into the digital fold. That is the biggest impediment. See, it's the absence of a market, Raza, that for any business. I mean, let's talk about tier one plus first. Why does everyone try to focus on tier one? Because that is where you see the affluent class transacting. That is where you see the basket size being of significant volume. That is where you see that a small percentage of that comes to you, and you can have your numbers grow. Every business of this sort will eventually have to go and raise funds. Somebody may have to do it 10 years, somebody may have to do 15 years, but some may require funds after a year or 2 years. So where do they show the real impact? Because you see, funds are not raised primarily on your books, they're also raised based on the impact, right? Impact has multiple ways, but the quickest one happens to be where you see the footfall happening. Places that are more developed, more urbanized, where you even your investors can come in and test your offering. So that is natural. Why not the real tail? Because the tail is actually huge. That's the problem. We right after the head finishes, we go down to the tail in the country. For that, you need to have a market. How a market will be created? See, Pakistan is always, making a choice. Pakistani businessman making a choice between chicken and egg. Outside of Pakistan, it's not that big of a decision, right? Because if you go down, you have access to funds from day one, seed capital is easy, you have the ability to take that risk, right? And you go down to that level and you wait and you incentivize for the transactions to happen. Once they start happening, then the snowball effect created. But here, if you go down to that tail, because of number one, education is reason number three, probably, that can be solved. Motivation coming into the digital fold. Then there's a problem of risk related, what do you call it, frameworks, risk frameworks. How do you justify that if you go down to a retail shop where you would see that the electricity is not officially there? I mean, you understand what I'm talking about, you see, when you ask for rental agreements, the shop belongs to somebody else. When you talk about the CNIC, then probably the person standing over there is officially not 18 years old. If you collate all that, then you are actually looking for trouble. And whenever you go and raise funds and such profile is looked at, then you're actually creating trouble for yourself. You may end up being blacklisted. So these structural things are the big impediment. Motivation wise, that's a green field. If these things get solved, a company like myself would jump on to tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. But till then, we would always be very careful in our approach. See, first of all, the interchange and MDR, they don't happen to be in dollars. They happen to be in rupees completely. The dollar part comes when it is the fee that is paid to the international payment schemes. That part happens to be in dollars. We as an industry accepted that probably a couple of decades ago, when we had local player as well, one local player rather. But the international payment schemes, the dollar was actually very stable since the last 10 years. So all our projections predicted that in 2006, the projections were that by 2022, the dollar would not cross 130. And here we are, the pricing part is all gone. Even amidst this, since the last 3 years, the number of point of sale terminals, I'm not talking about other touch points, Number of point of sale terminals, they have tripled. We went through COVID as well. We went through, I mean, import restrictions as well, and still that increased. So that tells you about the motivation now, because the time has come where people have started to realize that card plastic, be it still not the most advanced way of payment, but card plastic still is more convenient than cash. People have started to realize it. That's a good part. The growth in card transactions has been double-digit growth since the last almost 10 years, which is phenomenal again. And that's not a natural growth. That means that real growth is happening. The young population, they are pretty much privy to what cards are, and when they come into the job market every year, they get access to it, and they are the biggest users of it. So that part is not the issue. Pricing, see, as far as pricing is concerned, we right now as an industry are still not at the maturity stage. What we don't realize is that undercutting is a one way ticket. You never get back. So the business sustainability is the key. I take you back 3 years. Back in the day, total number of machines effectively that Pakistan had were less than 40,000, right? We were the only country in the world where the number of machines were reducing, whereas the number of card in circulation were increasing. That was the only phenomena with Pakistan. Why? Because we were not letting the business thrive on itself, and the economics, the unit economics were bad. 3 years ago, it changed. Multiple things happened, changed, and suddenly you got two international players over here. You had competition, but a healthy one. People didn't want to incur losses, but what they wanted to do was that they want to expand and now compete in the market with greater network. You saw big banks, even players like us, putting in a lot of machines, doubling and tripling our network. Some work, some don't work. A lot of problems do happen, but we have an incentive to expand and make more money, which means business viability is the key. In terms of MDR, you see, point of sale based payments are not the only way to make payments. They are just a way of making payments where customers are more comfortable now. But that comfort has come after 2.5 decades. We started with the card based payments and acceptance back in the 90s. Okay, now the adoption of any other methodology will not take as much time, but it will still take some time, right? It's a paradigm that will take some time to shift. Now we have alternate methods. We have RAST as well. We have maybe some other methodologies, closed loop wallets as well. Yeah, for example, we have the ability in future to launch closed loop payments. We have our own merchant wallet, we have our own consumer wallet, and we have our own point of sale network. We stand uniquely in that way. But would I rely on that? No, that will take some time to build in. See, the point is sustainability. Making money is not bad. It's actually very good for the economy because it helps you expand. If Keenu makes money, good with funds, then what Keenu would do is it would put more money in that business because we are not into any other business, right? Same goes with every entity. So I believe there should not be any way out of the MDR. Even POS-based payments should be sustainable for the business. RAS-based payments, again, should be sustainable for all the players, issuers, acquirers, merchants. And we all need to understand that we need to position these not against each other, but against cash. So that is probably one error in our thought process. A regulator is very clear. They don't believe in this. They believe that the war is against cash and towards with digitization, as in we are allies of digitization. But businesses somehow, with a new idea or God knows what, they try to position QR against POS, sound-based payments, right, against QR, and whatnot. I don't know. Maybe app-based payments, tap and pay. They are all going to complement each other. For example, my view and Keenu's view in general is that we'll be placing our QR-based payments not on fuel pumps but on tier 2 for now. You talked about lending. I think that's the most important piece because you see, that is after I believe the government's focus and legislation, this is the piece where we have done virtually nothing in terms of lending, giving out credit to the lowest strata of the society. I'm talking about the businesses. See, consumer loans may not help because that is one spending that that will only spike and then it'll go down. When the money is done, then you have a problem of NPLs. Whereas when you talk about businesses, That is the real financing. Whether it is tier one supply chain financing, whether it is tier two matrix based lending, the recovery becomes easy. Your portfolio and your own credit rating, that also builds over time. I think embedded finance, that should be the real focus. I believe for this, the encouragement has to again come from the top and from the government as well. They have to provide the catalyst. The regulator has to, in my view, they can mandate that this much or X percentage of your portfolio has to go down to tier two. Because you see, SME is very vaguely defined now. What do you call an SME? That's a question I always ask myself. With a volume of 100 million, is that an SME or is that a corporate? Definition of SMEs in other countries, let's forget that. Let's talk about Pakistan's dynamics. So SME and MSME, they are the real game, but how do you lend them? In the absence of a social, what do you say, rating system, social rating system, like you see in the West, for that matter, like you hear about a lot about China. With the absence of the social security system, how would you lend to them? Now, there multiple entities and publics have to come together and encourage a business to lend. A business does not have to bring in the technology, the credit scoring system, the grit. That is probably the most important factor, and the money itself. So, it's because digitization is not only going to impact the business, making money and creating a long-term impact are two different things that are just done side by side. Where are the publics in this entire play? Where are the publics? Why does all the work have to be done by the customer, by the merchant, and the business who's trying to digitize them? Where are the other publics? They come in, and you will see. See, why I'm optimistic? Because all this talk, you go back 10 years and you would say it's not ever going to happen. It's just like people sitting in 90s thinking about iPhone, and they would say it's never going to work, right? So 10 years, a lot has changed. But right now, we can play catch. It's either going to take 30 years, but it can happen in 3 years' time. How 3 years? And I'm talking about catching up with India, with our neighbors all across any international entity. You have to just fall in line and follow that one direction, digitization. Any funds coming in, you see, if government takes a bet of 10 billion rupees, right? You do the maths, apply all the economic multipliers. You would see those 10 billion given to entities like yourselves, like us, like many others out there who are regulated, who are under state bank's complete control. And if they went down and lend it to people, you would see the results. Those 10 billion would have an economic impact of nothing short of 40 billion, right? And that is how it goes. So incentivization, I'm not talking about incentivization, I'm just talking about playing your part, right? So that's the biggest piece that remains. The last part first. Potential, my one word would be immense. What it means for Pakistan, I think we are a bit late. It should have happened much earlier. Pakistan is probably one of the few countries who don't have their own payment backbone, and that happens to be the payment backbone. The way to go about it, yes, it is. I appreciate the approach. We are going towards from the bulk payments down to the retail part. The pricing, I think that is what needs to be understood, looked at, because again, RAST is the backbone, whereas the function of the entire body, which I'm talking about in context of payments, it is done by the tributaries, and it is done by the limbs and everything, if I put it in that context. So I think it is going in the right direction. However, regulated entities now need to adopt to it. We need to actually set the realistic timelines. You see, RAST is a very big change. Conceptually, you understand what hasn't been done in the last 50 years. RAST will be able to do that in the next 5 years. But we can't expect magic to happen in the next 5 months. As I said, the paradigm shift happened from people not understanding card payments to now people from all age groups, from whatever educational background, now using cards with A's, now understanding how not to overspend. That was a problem back in the day, if you remember, overspending through cards, and there were a lot of reports in that regard. Now they've learned the budgets, they know the SMS and how the transaction is tallied. We are now gotten used to apps as well. So same is the case with RAS. Use cases need to be built around it, right? How consumer can adopt a certain platform, be it that belongs to any bank, and how payments can seamlessly be done at the merchants. At the merchants, there could be subscription-based payments. There could be hundreds of use cases, and each company may use that use case and become financially very viable. The end level pricing should be determined by the businesses themselves. You see, when that happens, you will see customers having choices. You would see businesses working towards better use cases, putting in more money, hiring better talent, and going about it. So my views are very positive in general. About this. See, one part that I've always been advocating, and thankfully my voice resonates with the regulator as well most times, and people who understand this business, you firstly have to ensure the instantaneousness of cash. You have to match that. The instantaneousness of cash and the digital payment has to match. Then the part remains is the cost of doing that transaction for a particular merchant, because consumers are generally not charged. In certain cases they are, and I believe we should not be worried about it, right? It may happen in the world that consumer not charged, but I've seen it in the Western world as well. I mean, in US for that matter, a lot of merchants surcharge the customers. But if you stop that process right then and there, then it will never evolve to the next level. And that evolution might not take more than a year or so. So you have to first let the adoption happen. Let it run. If the consumers don't have, for example, if you shop for about a couple of thousand rupees and you have to pay 20 rupees add on, but you don't want to carry cash, it's not a big amount. And for a lot of customers, that's just noticeable difference kind of a payment. They don't care about it. You should let it happen. That's what I believe in. The other part where you say that what needs to be done, so instantaneousness, the biggest impediment that can be solved very easily, the cost of funds. For example, in the regime that I work in, if I pay one day in advance, which I do right now, I have to bear a cost of around 27-28%. When people ask me, is it viable, this POS business for a new player, I say no, because of the cost of funds. It's a huge amount you're paying, 27-28%, KIBOR plus 2, KIBOR plus 3. So if that part is funded, like it has happened in Malaysia as well, I forgot the name of the bank. It happened over there. They told me that the central bank, through the government, central bank can't do it themselves, of course. Through the government, those funds were given by the government, which means the cost of fund became zero for settling the merchant earlier. When you do that and you settle the merchant instantly, or maybe in 15 minutes time, it's the same. Everything changes. The merchant has then no problem in adopting. So there might be, if you classify, there might be three categories of merchants. One will not, maybe 50% will not come in because of tax purposes. Maybe 25% may not come in because of religious purposes, which can be worked on, we can educate them at the state level that there's nothing religious or non-religious about it, right? The remainder, which may be a big chunk, would say that, I get cash right now, I get this cash tomorrow, or maybe after the weekend, why should I go for it? So if that happens, that can happen technologically, no problem. We can do it from tomorrow. But we need to bear one more day's cost of fund. That is a huge cost now. If the discount rate would have been 3-4%, we would have done it anyways. But we have always been on the north of 10%. And you add up to the already high cost intensive business, where you're in courtesy inflation, everything has gone up. Courtesy inflation, the cost of payroll costs have gone up. You have to have the best resources. They would jump out of the ship if you don't pay them well enough, and there's no break around it. So that's one part. The other part is, you see, we need to, in one way, do this part where you handle the instantaneous. The other part, why do we incentivize cash? The other part is, why can't cash be disincentivized? For example, when we go to a certain place and place our machines or place our QR codes, then, and if the merchant, which is not generally which is mostly in fact not in our control, for merchant surcharges. Why does it have to be a surcharge? Why can't our thought process be this, that cash is for 102 rupees, and if you do a digital transaction, it's going to cost you 100 rupees? It's just a matter of mindset. Why are we not doing that? Why? Because most of the people are coming in for cash, right? If you go to an electronic market where it is very difficult to put a machine because of tax reasons, they're all very smart. They know they'll get into the tax ambit, and everybody knows that, right? So if you go out there, and they generally work at a margin of 7%. When you talk about cell phones, 5%, 7%, 3%. They would, if they have to sell a phone, they would sell it with a margin of 100 rupees, which is nothing. Why? Because they have to empty their inventory and get new ones. Otherwise, the shelf space will be clogged with the old stock. Now, those guys are giving discounts on cash. As soon as you bring your card, they say we're going to charge you 2.5%. They are making money on that. Nobody charges them 2.5%, right? They are making another 50 basis points or 70 basis points on top of what they're being offered. You can't challenge them. Simply what they'll do is they'll throw your machine away, or tear your QR code away. There has to be a mechanism where if you do not accept digital payments, then you would not be given any banking service. You stop their LCs, you stop their basic saving account. Now, the carrot, if it doesn't work, then there has to be the stick, right? So where is the stick part? Where is the stick at the right pain point where it hurts, right? That is, you disincentivize cash, you mandate them to accept digital instrument, because we need to realize that it's a national emergency when it comes to digitization. Imagine, courtesy digitization, the number of registered people, number of registered merchants, or digitized or documented merchant base, they double in the next 2 years. Would you be worried about a lot of things that you're worried about right now? The answer is no, you won't be, because a lot of things would have taken care of themselves. The tax collection would increase. The customers won't have a problem. So we all need to realize, in Pakistan, the biggest enemy is cash, the biggest leakage is cash. Why isn't enforcement being done at the right direction? Why interventions are done at the wrong people who are already suffering? So this is my long short answer, that merchant base has to be made sure that they price digital cheaper than cash. Then there's no point of any discount or any problem in that regard. One, they have to make sure that everyone has to do a digital transaction. Spot checking should happen. They should never be able to say no. And if we say instantaneousness, then they will not have the argument that on a Friday we do a transaction, we get settled on a Monday. We would like to settle every merchant on every day, but these small pieces need to be fixed. See, actually right now the two issues are separate. That is what's causing the real problem. See, if we all, for example, the revenue authorities, the central bank, the government, and everyone around us, even the law enforcement agencies, if we all realize suddenly, that is maybe tomorrow, let's take an example, that digitization is more important than anything right now for the economy, and economic problems are the only problem. We don't have any other issues, by the way. Everything is stemming from, even the socio-economic problems stemming from economic problems right now. If you all realize that this is the most important piece, then the scenario would be that if I place my machines. Now, going back to the example, we bore the biggest brunt. We lost about 500 odd merchants. If you take out a percentage, that's probably like 7-8% of my total portfolio in a day's time. And we still haven't recovered. What happened was, as always, we reported everyone reports the transactions and everything. So what happened was, suddenly this happened, and people getting notices, and those were the ones who were never in the tax umbrella, and we wanted to venture down to tier 2. So instead of giving them more time, and the revenue authorities also coming together, working with central bank and us, and say that, for example, if they are digitized, which means now they're in the right path, they should be given some kind of respite. Instead, we just start sending them notices. There might have been people, and obviously we can't know for sure or in any way, There might have been certain ones who were not registered or paying taxes, but at least they took the first step. Now, they'll never come and get digitized, which means we are actually looking at the same problem from different angles, sitting in different buildings. They have to be one. Central bank has done a lot of hard work in that regard by means of giving everything, and you must commend. You just look at, you compare decades. The last 10 decades, I think central bank has worked with all guns blazing, right? With their whatever capacity they had, they have probably worked three times more than their capacity. But on the other side, the revenue authorities are just wanting to collect the revenue for the year. This can't happen. That 1 year, if you live 1 year by 1 year, the market will never get developed. You have to everyone has to have a view of the next 10 years, at least the next 5 years. You bring those merchants in the fold, you give them respite, and you start giving them the incentivization of being taxed. You offer them something for that matter, that if you place a machine. Now, if you talk about an electronic market in Lahore, I'm not going to name any markets because I'm in this business for that matter. Karachi is still much better, but if you pick some market in Lahore, and if you give them the incentivization, see, you pay this much in total by one way or the other. If you place a machine, just have to add this much and you'll be an absolutely legal entity. No notices shall ever come by you. That confidence needs to be given. See, and then take a view of 5 years. After 5 years, I think the discussion of not paying taxes will not even be a question. We are not giving ourselves that time of 5 years. That is missing. We are always wanting a change, pursuing a change that should happen within 6 months. That is what is the biggest issue.